so long it's like alchemy.
Notification squad, I see you, I feel you, and I appreciate y'all. All right, so let's get into this, man. This is week 2 of questions for Alchemy, man. And one that, I think is a very interesting one and a very debatable subject is, who's the better player or whose team is it? Steph Curry or Kevin Durant, okay? So, you know me, I love the analogies, and coming off that UFC last week, I don't know, some of y'all saw that video on the Patreon. I'm going to give you a little analogy through the UFC. So Kevin Durant is essentially John Jones, okay? He's just long, fast. His physical attributes are just devastating, right? And he has all the tools in the world. Steph Curry is kind of like Anderson Silva, right? He can do all the stuff. It's very good, but he's not as physically gifted or as imposing as John Jones. But there's a big difference between the two. Anderson Silva has that one-hit knockout power, that fear, that if he catches you, it's lights out, it's over, right? Where John Jones, it's kind of an accumulation. We saw the head kick, but even that head kick, there was an aftermath. We've never really seen him just put someone's lights out like that. And so there's a certain amount of fear that comes with fighting Anderson Silva or facing Steph Curry, where in the blink of an eye, your lights are out. It's over. The game is over. The fight is over. And that's what Steph possesses over Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, without a question, is the better basketball player. You want to talk about the toolbox, the size, the defense, the rebounding, and minute for minute, night in and a night out in a game, Kevin Durant's going to give you more without question. But that special factor, that lights out factor, Steph Curry, his flame, if you will, when he's on fire, he's got that blue flame, right? Kevin Durant can get hot, right? And he can devastate you as well. But Steph, very few players have that blue flame that can just incinerate you. And that's what Steph brings to the table. Another thing psychologically that Steph has over Kevin, which I feel is insatiability, right? What that means for those of you, I know that I'm trying to get it with these words that, most of y'all know what that means, right? Basically, insatiable means that you're never satisfied. You're always hungry for more, right? And to get to that level, these guys, they're never satisfied on a main level. But what I mean by that is with scoring. If you take a look at guys' career highs in scoring, a lot of them, you'll notice, like guys will be stuck in the 40s, 41, 45, 42, right? Or some guys are in the 30s. And then very few, the Kobe Bryants, the Steph Currys, the Klay Thompsons, you see with 50 and 60-point games, every season. Guys have a ceiling for their insatiability. I guess that doesn't match up. But what I'm saying is there's a certain amount of points that a guy scores in a game where they're kind of satisfied. They're like, dang, man, I got 40, and they kind of get pleased with themselves. And Durant kind of falls in that 40-point range. If you look at his career stats, when he hits about 40, he kind of takes his foot off the pedal. He may be a little satisfied. Now, I know he's had some 50-point games here and there, but Steph is insatiable. He truly thinks he can go for 100, right? When he hits 2 or 3 threes in a row, he's insatiable. Klay is the same way. So that strikes fear in the opponent. When Steph Curry comes down the court and hits 2 threes in a row, you can feel it in the arena and in the opponent's body language. They're like, this could be it for us. This could be it. Not so much with KD. But overall tools and skills, without question, Kevin Durant, just the God-given physical gifts. He stepped up big time defensively. He can rebound. And he's just the more polished overall player. I won't say polished. That's not the right word. He has more skills in different areas of the game. And he's just a more difficult matchup. But Steph has that special blue flame, man. So you can debate that back and forth of who's more important. You can't really say, you know what I mean? I will bring this up though. Last season was kind of a honeymoon phase for Kevin Durant, okay? You know what I mean? He wanted to fit in, absolutely, right? He didn't want to mess up the chemistry of a championship caliber team. And there was very few instances, a couple times where Draymond barked at him for going ISO, right? But he was just on his best behavior. Now that he's damn near snatched the crown from LeBron, got his ring, he's feeling himself. Y'all see him on social media getting at people, right? Is the honeymoon phase over? Will KD revert kind of back to some of his old ways? Will he go more ISO? Will he try to take more of a lead with this team and become kind of the alpha? Will the torch or the mantle fully be passed to KD in this second season of this Steph-KD dynamic? That's something to look for. I feel like there's a strong possibility that KD is more aggressive. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I think Steph is a rare superstar where he's smart enough that he sees the big picture. It's going to prolong his career, and it'll allow him to, dial up that blue flame when need be as the season extends. So there's no right or wrong answer to this. You could say who's more important? Steph's the face of the franchise, and he strikes more fear in the opponent than KD. But on a night-to-night basis, through a long season, KD's just going to do more for the team. That's how I see things. What else? Here we go. So second, I want to touch on Ian Clark. Those of you that haven't heard, Ian Clark went to the New Orleans Pelicans, okay, on a 1-year minimum contract. I'm happy for Ian. I'm a little disappointed he didn't get more, but again, this shows that teams. You remember someone brought this up. Shout out to whoever brought this up, one of my subscribers. You remember in the early 2000s and in the 90s, you'd see this every year where teams that were very successful, championship caliber teams that went deep in the playoffs, lesser teams would poach their role players. Who comes to mind for the Warrior fans? It's Jason Caffey, was on that Bulls team in the late 90s. We paid him a grip of money. Bum-ass, Carlton-looking-ass dude, man. I apologize that I brought that up, y'all. I didn't mean to traumatize y'all from, what that was. But anyway, teams, have kind of learned from that. They're not, you saw that with JaVale as well. Guys, the organizations are smarter. They're like, look, JaVale is not going to be as productive for us as he was for Golden State, nor is Ian Clark. And then second, it speaks to the market, right? The cap went up so much. We saw Portland and some of these teams just hand out ridiculous contracts last season, where now it got hit back because there was less playoff games. The Warriors themselves absolutely lowered the salary cap this season because they only lost one game in the playoffs. There was less playoff revenue to increase the cap. I'm no capologist, but that's basically what sums it up. But what I do like is Ian Clark went to a team that can take a leap, right? The Pelicans, obviously Boogie, AD, they re-signed Jrue Holiday. He's not going to start. They got Rondo as well. But the thing with Ian Clark on the Warriors, he experienced a lot of success and he got more opportunity than many people thought, but he's not going to get any credit. You're like, well, you're on the Warriors, dog. You're on the Warriors. I mean, shoot, I could hit them open threes too, right? So he didn't get any credit because he was part of such a great team, where he's joining this team. If they take a leap into the playoffs and they do a lot better this season, Ian can get a lot more credit. 2, the fit. With Boogie and AD, y'all remember those backdoor cuts that Ian Clark would make with David West? They had a great chemistry where Ian would come off the pin downs for the 3, and then he'd back cut to the rim, and David West would hit him. You've got 2 great high post passers in Boogie and AD, so that should fit well. And then he's probably going to get opportunity, man. I already brought it up. The Jrue Holiday contract, would he get like $170 million, man? That's extreme for someone who hasn't stayed healthy, right? So Jrue Holiday, will he be healthy through the remainder of the season? And then Rajon Rondo, will he remain happy and a part of the team through the season, right? He doesn't necessarily have a bad injury history. He does get chipped up, but it's more of like, will he emotionally commit, and psychologically, will he be there night in and night out? So you can't count on those 2 guards. I think Ian and his agent took a look and said, hey, man, I may be starting by February. Jrue may be on IR and Rondo may be, MIA somewhere. So the opportunity is there. Now, if everything falls into place and they are winning, let's say Holiday and Rondo, and they do play well, the one question I have is gold. If you look at our second unit with Livingston and Iguodala, our length enabled Ian Clark to play the 2 guard because he's only like 6'2", right? So a lot of the times he would guard the point guard. Livingston or Ig would switch on to the 2. Our size and length hid Ian Clark defensively. Now, New Orleans doesn't have that length with their wings. Jrue Holiday at 6'4", he's a strong dude. He can, on most nights, switch to the 2 guard and guard the 2, and Ian can hide on the point guard. But they definitely don't have that wing versatility that may hurt Ian's chances of playing heavy minutes. Now, a guy he's going to be battling for the third guard spot is Jordan Crawford. Now, Warrior fans, none of you bandwagoners, no offense, y'all, but Warrior fans that remember Jordan Crawford during the Nelly era, he had a stint with us, man. I think he had like a 40 point. He's an explosive J.R. Smith type of scorer, right? He's kind of Lance Stevenish. He's not as big and bulky, but he likes to dance with the ball, and he's a bad shot maker in the truest sense of that. I think he'd been over in China. He's still young enough, and he gets really, really hot. He's kind of hot or cold. And so if he's dialed in, his potential is higher than Ian Clark's. There is a possibility that he is the third guard and he takes Ian's minutes because he's just bigger and more physically gifted, and he can just get buckets, man. So, but I will say, I don't think he's as good of a catch and shoot player. Ian fits better with the starters, but off the bench, Crawford may get the nod. Let's see here if I missed anything that I wanted to cover on this. The health, Crawford. No, I think that's it for that. I'm happy for Ian, and hopefully he can parlay this into a longer contract. I'll definitely be keeping y'all up to date on what he does this season, because that team is interesting either way. So yeah, shout out to Ian Clark. So I'm doing these in threes. People say threes. People like threes. So my last question or answer should be the topic. Blah, blah, blah. It's whatever. But the last subject will be, of the big four, who will be the first to leave the team out of Klay, Draymond, Steph, and KD? Now, I wanted to break one thing down. I want to look at longevity. Whose game is going to translate and who's going to age better, basically. And here's how my list goes, okay? Klay is going to age the best, because he's 6'7", he's just got a very strong base, doesn't jump a lot, right? He's kind of plays on the floor. Remember, Andre Miller set the record for consecutive games played, right? He has the Cal Ripken Award, the Iron Man Award. And when they asked him what his secret to his longevity was, he said, I don't jump. I just don't jump. I play on the ground. And not that Klay can, we saw some dunks from Klay, but he generally plays on the ground and uses his strength and footwork. So Klay, I see, could play well into his mid-30s, 35, 36 years old, and still be doing what he's doing. Now, he'll take a step back defensively. He'll probably have to, he won't be able to guard point guards, you know what I mean? But his shooting and his skill set will translate very well into older age. Second off, Draymond Green. Because Draymond, let's face it, he is not an elite athlete. What he's doing, a lot of it is will, passion, desire, and then skills and smarts, right? So he's only going to get smarter, right? And it's like he doesn't really have a step to lose. Now, the one counter argument to that is Draymond's hard on his body. He plays the game so hard, he could get chipped up. He could start to have back and knee problems just because of his style of play. But his skill set, he's only going to get better, a la Jason Kidd at that set top of the circle three ball, right? And then his IQ is only going to get higher. So Draymond, another one who could play, into his late 30s, presumably. And I honestly see that happen. I think he just loves the game that much. Third, it's going to be KD, just simply because of his size, right? Even when he slows down, Dirk Nowitzki is a perfect example of this, and Dirk was never as athletic as KD. But Dirk, you can see, is still effective, right? Because of his size and his shooting, he still can get buckets. And that's really going to be the same case with KD. It'll be interesting to see if he decides to stay light and play on the perimeter, or if he bulks up and becomes like a stretch 5, stretch 4 guy. You see that, man? I just spit particles, but your boy's excited. So it'll be interesting to see, what he does with his body. But again, another guy that could play well into his 30s. We know about the foot problems, but it seems like Nike and his trainers have kind of solved that issue. If you notice, he wears his shoes extra loose around the foot. Shoe comes off like every other game. Pay attention, y'all. Details. And last but not least, Steph. Right? So Steph, it's just a size thing, man. I talked about in a previous video about how Chris Paul, at his size, he's not going to age well. Now, Steph is going to age better than CP. He's significantly bigger. He's 3 or 4 inches taller, a lot longer, and then he can shoot the ball key on and off the ball, right? So Steph, towards the twilight of his career, he could just come in and be a guy that pops off screens and spreads the floor. Obviously, like with KD, Steph appears to be through his ankle injuries. So, but I know you men and me all don't want to hear it, but the reality of it is, of the big four, Steph is not gonna age as gracefully as these other guys, and that's just the way the game goes. The guards don't last as long as the bigs. So after that, I kind of rambled on about how I ranked their longevity. So with all that being said, the tyrant move, the real tyrant, emotionalist move would be to trade Steph at around 31, 30 years old and flip him, because you see it every year. There's some explosive, don't get me wrong, there is no Steph Curry's out there, but there's very talented young point guards coming out every year. And at some point, if you could trade Steph for a guy that, is a very explosive, there's no such thing as surefire, but an all-star caliber point guard, you get him on a rookie deal, right? And again, that's a bold move, and you may be able to get 2 for 1. Steph is still at 30. If you pull the trigger before he really ages, you could get a king's ransom, right? You could get a potential star point guard and another role player and maybe another. You could get a lot, right? But now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, because I think the clout that Steph's built in the Bay Area and what he means to the franchise in the city, I think that won't happen. The more likely scenario will be them trying to flip Draymond Green. One, because more than likely, who's the one that's going to alienate themselves from the franchise, the ownership, from other guys, right? Draymond, he's controversial, right? So there's going to be a wear out factor with Draymond. It's, he's so intense. He's such an alpha that after years and years of hearing his voice in the locker room and being around him, there may be a burnout factor with Draymond with the other stars. Second off, you're seeing it with Jordan Bell. Now, there's guys that are being developed and modeling their game after Draymond, the new stretch 4 versatile big wing guy, right? And so you're going to see more and more of these guys come out each season, and they'll be able to move Draymond and probably fill his role with a young guy on a cheap contract and maintain depth and stability with the rest of the stars on the team. Now, and the argument would be, you say you can't lose Draymond, he's the heart of the team, he's the leader, and this is true. But the argument also would be, 2 or 3 seasons from now, how battle-tested is Steph, Clay, and KD going to be? You presume they're going to be in 2 or 3 more NBA finals and have a couple more rings on their fingers, right? So will his leadership matter as much with Steph, Clay, and KD in their 30s? Probably not. So to sum it up, I feel like Draymond is the most likely of the big four to be shipped out, and they won't lose. Don't get it twisted. They're not going to lose one of these 4. They will move one of them before they lose them for nothing. The ownership and management is too savvy not to. So I see it being Draymond. Anything else? I don't know how long I rambled here. It's been about a week. My work schedule was crazy. I'm real excited about football season, Patreons, Niners, Raiders. I'm going to be covering that. And I'll be back with some more basketball coverage as we get into training camp. Put some more questions for next week's Q&A. Let me know what y'all think. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.